everyone, hope you're all doing well. And this is an early live. Don't usually do lives this early. We're still setting up the new space, but we have an official room for tea live stream. So I do hope you're all doing well. If you're just joining now, drop in the comments what tea you're drinking, how's your morning going. We'll let some people funnel in here. And I'm going to be doing two things today. We'll be drinking the 2008 Lao Man E raw, because it's been quite a while since we drank that tea. And I also have a few antiques I picked up in Vietnam that I think you all might get a kick out of. At least I did. So I just want to open up the chat so I can have access to that. And of course, wait for the water to boil. Not the best camera angle, I have to say. We can improve upon that, I think. Alrighty, so a lot of fun things. Hopefully you're all doing well. Thanks for all your support. Going forward, we're trying to do, of course you all know, one new video on the channel first of the month, and then of course we'll be doing a live stream on the public YouTube channel as well. Next live stream, this video will be far better. It's quite early. Move things around. Last night I was drinking the new Zhangfeng Ripe Puer. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more infusion of this, and then we'll transfer on to the other tea. Hey Zhangfeng, I hope you're doing well. Might be more evening over there. So this is quite funny. So I went to my in-laws' house and I found these. So antiques, we all know antiques are getting tough because obviously if there's good quality antiques at an antique store, even throughout the US, people are probably buying them up. People are becoming more familiar with quality antiques, one because of the rarity and scarcity. And you know, 5 years ago, maybe more like 10 years ago, you can go to almost any antique store and get pretty lucky. Find some 1970s, 1980s, antiqueware guy ones pretty easily. Now that's even becoming hard, let alone find something that's older than that. So you're just kind of in a pickle. Like I had a really cool gift that was given by my friend Daniel, this kind of noodle dipping cup, right? So this is an antique from Japan where they dip the noodles in a sauce. Awesome, right? Even those things are getting harder and harder to find. So this, I went to my in-laws' house. We drove quite a while, 2 hours away, and of course everyone's speaking Vietnamese, so I'm trying my best. I'm just kind of usually quiet most of the time and I say hello. But then I saw a broken dish like this on one of her great-grandmother's houses on the tray, and it was just kind of cracked. They had it outside, right? Nothing too special. And I was like, that's really beautiful. And this isn't the one I saw. Theirs was more damaged. I'm like, this is really beautiful. This is from China. And they said, yeah, this is from my great-great-grandparents. And they pulled out a whole bunch. Bowls, cups, and stuff. Oh, we have all this stuff, you know. Doesn't really mean too much, just that it was in the family. And then they gave me two. So they gave me a plate. So these are quite old. They were imports from China. And this type of pattern is very difficult to find. There's nothing fancy. There's no fancy, really, brushwork. But it's more of a stone ceramic ware. And I was like, this is perfect for tea boat, right? So it was just funny because they thought I was so weird because I like this old trash ceramics more than anything, so they think I'm super weird in-law. But that was super exciting. And then this is more like a rice bowl. Not quite sure what I'll use this for yet. Maybe a wash bowl, maybe something. But this is also quite beautiful. This one is probably my favorite out of the bunch. But it's funny, just like the random places you'll find antiques in the most unexpected areas. So that was a cool little addition for my trip. Anytime I get a nice little antique, sign me up. Alright, so let's get to the chase. Let's drink some Lao Man E raw. It's been a very, very long time since I drank the 2008 Lao Man E raw. So let's visit it. The reason it's in the morning is because that tea can be quite powerful. Huge gaiwan, yeah. Well, it's not a gaiwan. It does. I guess it kind of does look like gaiwan, right? Because it's got the base, but it's just a rice bowl and a small plate. Still tasty. That tea goes strong, very durable. There's also a new fellow kettle. So I was thinking about reviewing it. I don't think I will. I mean, it looks the same, honestly, quite speakingly. But they updated a lot of the technology, and I'm not a big fan of having tech in tea. I actually try to get away from technology and phones when I'm drinking tea. I think it defeats the purpose. Like, I want to have my kettle that's not linked to my app and all this other stuff, but it seems like they're one of the best ones out there. But they basically made the base metal instead of plastic, which I can definitely enjoy that. But then the dials like multicolor, there's timer settings, they have a better understanding on temperature control. You can, set it for 3-hour hold, 1-hour hold, 15-minute hold. There's a better fit here, though in order to make that better fit, they created a silicone ring around the lid. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And there's a new game on it, so I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a kettle I go after. I already have 3 fellow kettles. I don't know if I need another one, but they do have a new kettle. You feel free to check it out. It's pretty interesting what they're doing, and if you like a lot of technology in your kettles, well, that might be the place to start. So, Lao Man E, 2008 Lao Man E Raw. What is so special about this tea? Well, besides that, it's very expensive. Why is it expensive? So, this is a 2008 Lao Man E from Da Nang. This is Taiwan storage, so this is probably purchased by Mr. He in Taiwan, probably 2009, 2010, and then it's been stored in Taiwan ever since. So that Taiwan storage, I prefer a lot more because obviously there's humidity, it's going to accelerate the aging process. In a tea like Lao Man E, creating a little bit additional kind of aging process, more kind of smoothing out the rough edges, can be very beneficial. So for this tea, I really have enjoyed that. And that's what this tea is. That's the same tea I sell on my little site. It is very expensive. That's why I only sell it in 9-gram amounts so people can get a good experience. You really only need 3 grams of this tea. It is very, very abundant. It is from old tea tree material. And it really helps people learn about the difference. Because a lot of people will say, Lao Man E, oh my goodness, it's so bitter. And it's just not in my experience. It's true, if you have smaller bushes, it'll be bitter, right? But Lao Man E from old tea trees is a strong tea. It's much more stronger than teas like Jingmai, Oolong, Yiwu, etc. But when you drink it, you may have a feeling of Chinese medicine or bitterness, but that quickly can leave. It won't stay or penetrate the palate. And then it has a really beautiful aroma in the pitcher and the cup left. However, it is still much stronger tea than the other teas, Jingmai, Oolong, Yiwu, etc., which I drink a lot more often. This tea does have a little kick. It's strong energy. And if you have a stronger you eat a lot of spicy food, eat a lot of food, or eat a lot of meat, you might like Lao Man E flavor profile. But those that maybe are vegetarian, that eat a little bit more lighter diet, you'll notice that this tea might be really intense on your body. So something to keep in mind. So I'm going to get this to a boil. I'm going to get this guy one really, really hot, and then I'm going to put the dry leaves in and appreciate the aroma. It's not as harsh as the ones in water. Great aftertaste as well. I haven't tried too many in the market, but I always hear things. Very bitter, very astringent, so I'm glad you're able to get a good experience with it. And a lot of what you're experiencing, well, there's 2 things. Obviously, the storage in Taiwan is helping, but the majority of the reason this tea is smoother and unique and has aftertaste is because of the old tree material being used. And that's the beauty of old tree material. And the more you drink it, you gotta be careful because it can get quite addicting and expensive if you start to like old tree material too much. And also very difficult to find, which can be a headache. You can also brew this tea in a teapot. For me personally, I like to use a gaiwan because for this particular tea, because then I don't risk like over brewing it, overheating it. If I do that, it can be quite a bold tea. When I picked up these in Vietnam, this is a kind of seasoned bamboo root. Doesn't seem like much, but I feel like things like this are even hard to get in America. So whenever I find little things like that, I try to pick it up. It seems like there's a pretty good interest in the Vietnamese teaware, so we'll be bringing probably over a few teapots and tea jars to put on the store. My wife made this little cozy for the tea jar. I think my kitty wants to get in, so I might let Azula into the room. I'm probably only going to use 2.5 grams to be honest. Because this tea, it will out-steep you. So if you try to have a steep out with this tea will win. I'm going to let that sit there for about 30 seconds. Let that aroma come up. You'll also notice now that my tea setup is on the floor. Just how I've drunk tea for most of my life. So, here we go. I still think it's one of the best ways to test a new raw tea. Really hot gaiwan, dry leaves, let it sit there, smell the aroma. That works extremely well with younger teas. Now, when you start to move into older teas, past 5 years or so and beyond, especially if there's something like Taiwan storage or humid storage, you have to approach it carefully because that aroma you first initially smell without a wash can really be the storage condition. You could really be smelling the storage environment, the storage condition, not necessarily the raw material of the tea. So do be careful with older teas or teas that have some extreme aging environments. Don't be so quick to judge the tea on the first aroma or steeping. I'm not picking up any concerns on this tea, but very smooth, has a little bit of richness, a little bit of stone fruit, feels a little bit masked, mostly because that storage aroma I'm starting to pick up, which is quite pleasant because Taiwan is quite clean. But do keep that in mind when you're analyzing tea or making a decision on a tea. You really need to get past the third infusion before you start to really taste the raw material of that aged tea. Right? We're really just smelling the storage. We're drinking and testing the storage in the first 1 or 2 infusions, so keep that in mind. That's why dry storage also is usually more expensive. It ages a lot slower. Also, I'm sure you all have heard the Baba Qingbing or the 88 tea cake from Vesper Chan. He has kind of been the trailblazer of dry storage. Now a lot of people are jumping on that train because humid storage, depending on the environment, can, yes, it accelerate the aging of the tea. But if there's a lot of humidity, it's going to break down the tea a little bit, it's going to age faster. It's going to lose the natural personality of the tea. This is aging faster. You're accelerating the aging process. Dry storage is going to age significantly slower, but it's going to keep the original personality of the tea. Maybe that's the famous mountain tea characteristics, the regional characteristics, the old tea tree characteristics, etc. So that is also why dry storage tends to be much more expensive, especially if it's been aged. So I'm going to do a little bit of that first infusion. This is another beauty. When you start to get really clean, quality, old tree material, processed safely and cleanly by a professional company, and you're able to experience that first infusion. Obviously, if you don't know the whereabouts or origin, probably should not be drinking the first infusion. But you'll notice that first infusion is very sweet, almost like sugar. It's very smooth, rich, it's very light at the same time, before the tea even starts to open. It's a very pleasant, quiet experience. Usually that really rich sweetness you're only getting from old tea trees. Even fresh, shun, raw. Some have seawater, fishy, marine smell that I dislike. Even few infusions it goes away, or let it rest a couple of months. So yeah, there's definitely that. And you probably, that's interesting, with raw, you're picking up a seawater, fishy, marine smell. Curious at kind of what regions or mountains those are tea from. Usually I get that off from a ripe. A ripe tea would sometimes have those characteristics. I also dislike those characteristics. But in a raw, I haven't often experienced that. But yeah, sometimes if you let it sit for a while, I'll be releasing a video on water vapor next month. That's the first 3 months after the tea has been pressed. Things to look out for, aromas, taste profiles, judging the tea in the first 3 months after it's pressed, because it's definitely more tricky because there's water vapor that's trapped in that tea cake. So once again, very high temperature, we're going to let that water settle just a tad. Pour it in from the side, don't want to disturb those leaves, of course. Nano Sun and Jingmai mostly. Fascinating. I know there's a lot of Jingmai and Nano tea areas on those mountains, so they all can be quite different. In my experience, I usually have not picked up marine fishiness in raw. If I did, I would be a little concerned. It's nice to know they go away after a few months. And that might just be something to do with the drying. Maybe the drying took a little bit longer, maybe there was a lot of rain, maybe they couldn't dry the cakes properly, and they're developing kind of this unique kind of funky, fishy marine aroma, but very good sign that it dissipates after a few infusions, and also dissipates after a few months. Yeah, because usually, yeah, you all might enjoy that next video on the first few months. When you think about raw tea, it's picked, it's sun-dried, it's kill-green. So let's walk through those processes, right? Picking the tea leaves from the trees. Oh wow, see, very sweet, very aromatic, very perfume-like, right? Not bitter, not harsh, not smoky. This is really the beauty of Lao Man E. The aroma is just incredible, like perfume. Starts out sweet and light. There is a Chinese medicine characteristic that'll kind of build and be very strong and bold on the forefront, and then fade away, have a nice lingering aftertaste. This is the true taste of Lao Man E. That bold initial kind of Chinese bitter medicine is there, and it's strong. Some people like it more than others, but it is not overpowering, and it is not penetrating to the palate. It's not leaving a forever bitterness and dryness on my palate. It's a very beautiful tea, so to think. Someone willing to pay an outrageous amount of money for this tea. Why? They're paying an outrageous amount of money for this tea because it's bitter and astringent, it leaves their mouth all dry and funky? No. They're paying a lot of money for this type of tea because it's so beautiful, beautiful aroma, really comfortable aftertaste, but it's much more bold and powerful on the forefront. So let's walk through that. All the things that go wrong in tea process, especially with the raw. Raw is quite unique because it's not like green, oolongs, blacks teas where the processing is so important. You need a tea master to process those teas, right? They're picked, they go back to the processing center, and then how are you sun drying? How are you air drying? What machine are you using to air dry? How are you filtering? How are you shaking the tea? How are you heating the tea? How are you baking the tea? how long are you doing it, and what intervals are you testing the tea, are you changing it. You're manipulating the raw material to have an outcome of white, green, oolong, or black tea, or something like yellow tea. But you're manipulating the tea. The tea master is very hands-on. Raw, totally different. You're picking the tea from the tea trees. So are those gardens well kept? Are they growing naturally deep in the forest? Good thing. Or are they tea trees alongside a road and villages? Are there clutter? Is there trash in the gardens? Things like that. Then who's picking the tea trees? Are the sacks clean? Have they been taken care of? Are they using gloves? Are they using their bare hands? None of that's good or bad, but just things to think about. And then once they pick all the leaves, once they're back, how are they sorting them? Are they sorting them in kind of a haphazard way, with people smoking cigarettes, food all around? Or are they trying to be a little bit more cleanliness when they are sorting the tea leaves? Those all have factors, of course. And they're sorting out good quality leaves, bad quality leaves. Once that's been done, there needs to be a kilgreen process. So kilgreen is a big wok, adding heat to the tea. Is that done with wood? What type of wood? Is it someone who really knows how to manage a fire? Or is there a lot of smoke coming up from the wok going into the tea leaves? Are there ambers? Is it electric? It's all going to affect the taste profile of the tea. In addition, all those woks, very important, all those woks routinely cleaned. A lot of woks are not taken care of and cleaned that well. That's why when you look at your tea, there's a lot of large black specks from the wok. Maybe that tea didn't get processed in a very clean wok. That's why you notice there's very, very large black specks at the bottom of the tea. In addition to that, once that's done, take the leaves, just get closer to Mao Chow, sometimes we'll let it dry for a while, sometimes then they'll press it or steam it, adding moisture, letting the kind of the tea leaves go and then they put it in a cloth, wrap it up. Is that cloth washed and cleaned? Well, they've been using those cloths for 20, 30 years, and they look all funky and black. That would be a concern. Obviously, mildew, fermentation, all kinds of things can go wrong there. Then they're going to let them sit in that cloth for a while to dry. Cleanliness is very important. Now, unwrap them from those cloths, and then put them under the stone, of course. Unwrap them from the cloth, put them on shelves. All those wooden shelves, or have them store it clean. Do they have moisture? Does that room they're drying in have proper airflow? Is it in a polluted area? Have they washed down the floor? Do the factory workers wear gloves and put footsies over their shoes? Is it a mess and nasty and dirty? Right? All of those things that I've explained can easily, very easily affect the taste profile of a raw puer because they're not processing it. So raw puer is very susceptible to observing aromas and materials and particulars because it's alive, right? Puer tea is almost like alive. It can grow, it can post-ferment, it can continue because it has those natural organisms and bacteria that's continued to grow. So any minute change or introduction of maybe unclean or not good bacteria is going to drastically change that tea over time. And it's just going to compound and get worse and worse and worse. So all those things you want to deeply think about when you're drinking puer. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Love this. I'm going to show you right. The steaming to press the cake. How clean is it? I mean, right there, you summed it up. And how could it impair the flavors? Similar to white tea, always tastes better to me. It becomes muted, almost stale once pressed. So that's interesting. That's interesting. So, white tea. We'll probably leave this for another video. That is tasty. So a lot more tasty than I remember. It's probably because I've been drinking that newer Lao Man E. I think it's from 2020 or 2021. I don't like that tea so much. This is aged Lao Man E. So, yeah. White tea. White tea's tough. In recent years, people have started to process white tea. They've started to over-process it. Go through too long of a kilgreen, too long of a wilting, killing the tea. Okay, the same way you would do green tea, oolong tea, black tea, you stop the oxidation process. It would be more aromatic in the short term, but then it doesn't age so well. It becomes kind of pale and muted over time. So white tea is very, very, very sensitive if you want to do correct processing of white tea, so it can indeed age. And I think the pressing of white tea is a difficult task, and you have to get someone who's really professional, has a lot of experience pressing white tea, so you can keep that tea intact and continue to age. Probably my favorite white tea I ever had was a 2004 brick that Danong produced, and it really tasted like blackberry brambles, and you could steep it like 30 times. But I really haven't seen an aged white tea like that in a long, long time. There are some good recent teas from Danone that are white tea that are pressed, that brick. There's that newer cake, which is very tasty. It's a very comfortable tea. I'm not crazy about it yet. We'll see how the brick ages, but it's a tough one. Pressed white tea is a very difficult skill. I'm not a white tea expert, so. But yeah, my favorite white tea of all time was that 2004 Danone brick, but there's no more of it. I don't have any more of it. I drank it all, and I haven't seen anything like it. But when white tea is aged right, oh, it's so good. So good. So you also want to know I'm doing very short infusions. There's only 2.5 grams or so of tea. Filling my teacup like it's alcohol. Too much in there. Really beautiful. Light, perfume, stone fruit, woodsy. I wonder why I don't drink this tea more. Or is this too expensive? But really tasty. I mean, this is the thing. You don't drink Famous Mountain Tea for a long time. Then you drink Famous Mountain Tea. That's all you want to drink. And then you have 5 or 6 cakes of Famous Mountain Tea gone. Then you wonder what happened to all your tea. Wow. What an experience. Really important you make this tea right. So some people think, why, Jeffrey, why you only put 3 grams? Because it comes in 9 grams and I separate them. Folks that have purchased them in the last 2 months, be aware that you may have gotten a little more than 3 grams because my scale is broken. And that's just the kind of person I am. I want to make sure you have a little more than a little less. So definitely take those bags out, measure them. Start with like 2.5 to 3 grams. Start there. This tea is very abundant, especially for a solo session. 2.5 grams is probably more than enough that you need. And be able to experience some of those subtleties, those sweetnesses. Really beautiful. And then once you've had that nice session, feel free to ramp up the amount of tea you use. Some people just like stronger tea, that's okay. So, I also got this from Miss Tan. I was like, I don't want this. She has it hanging in her tea shop. All these crazy tea people do crazy stuff. So, these are the old tea leaves, Lao Yids. And these are usually found at the bottom of the trees. And sometimes they make them into cakes, or people just drink them after it's been dried. They're not processing them that much. They're picked and dried, basically. But they're really sweet. You usually want to be very careful with Lao Yids, or old tea leaves, because, one, they're extremely cheap. And if they use pesticides in the area to kill the grass or the weeds, well, what do you think is getting hit with the pesticides the most? Well, the bottom leaves of the tree. So you want to make sure they're from a clean plantation. But she's hanging these hanging up in her shop. And so she said she wanted to give me a huge one. I was like, I can't take that back, so give me a tiny one. So I'm gonna do a YouTube video on this. But basically, you just take these old tea leaves, you rinse them, and then you brew them in cold water, like a long steep, long cold brew. And then you kind of get this nice, sweet tea water. Also in China, I've seen them take old tea leaves from puer trees and make ripe puer. And those ripe puers tend to be kind of a lighter in color, but just so sweet. Just like really, really sweet, like jujubes or dates or berries. And they're usually very cheap. The cakes are very, very cheap because old tea leaves are not really that sought after. They don't have a full body and aftertaste, but they're just a kind of a nice, sweet taste profile. So I don't know if anyone has an interest in seeing more about that, but I thought that'd be fun to share. So Huang Pian is yellow leaves. They're a little different. So Lao Yizi, or old tea leaves, are just from the bottom of the tea tree, and sometimes those leaves have been staying there for a very long period of time. And Huang Pian, or yellow leaves, they do the normal picking of the tea, the newer buds, all throughout the bush or the tree. And then when they do the sorting, there's just naturally some yellow leaves throughout the tea picking on the trees. And those yellow leaves can also be quite sweet. And so sometimes they often will filter out those yellow leaves to the side. So they're a little bit different. They don't have to always be as old old tea leaves, the yellow leaves, but they usually come in the natural picking of the tea. And sometimes those yellow leaves can be all over the tree or certain parts of the tree, where the older tea leaves are usually just on the bottom. Certain companies completely filter out yellow leaves. They don't want them in their tea cakes. They want the full body richness of the tea cake, and then sometimes they'll separate the yellow tea leaves and press them in a separate pressing, or use them for other batches of tea to make them a little sweeter. But the leaves aren't as beautiful, but there's nothing wrong really with the leaves. They can still be quite tasty. This tea's strong though. That's why I need to drink it in the morning. I don't know, how many people are tuning in? I wonder if we should do more morning lives. Kind of was last minute though. So if I give them more notice. Not so many people. I guess not a lot of people are waking up at 7:30 on a Saturday. Oh hey Andrew. We got all the folks overseas. I like it. Yeah, this tea's tasty. They seem undesired in China. Seem like dead leaves. Yeah. I mean, you'll see companies, certain prestigious companies, they definitely don't want Huang Pian in their tea cakes because they feel it's, well, one, there's kind of this weird stigma that tea is cheap. And so it also distracts from the beauty of the tea cake, and certain tea critics and competitions will look negatively upon those type of leaves in tea cakes because it's taken away from the personality of the region or the tea mountain or the quality of the tea. And then some other smaller producers don't really care because they just have a few yellow leaves in a cake, and there's usually not that many, just a few. Yeah, I mean, if you get to the higher levels, it's not. There's definitely some companies that get very particular, and they will sort out all the yellow leaves, the old leaves, even the leaves that have weird shapes or they're cut unevenly. They'll filter those out as well. Same with the old tea leaves. Like, these are pretty undesirable. But if they're clean, I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with them, but they're not going to have the full-bodied characteristic and what we know of puer tea that makes it so enjoyable and expensive. Those characteristics are not in Huang Pian and old tea leaves. I don't drink, Huang Pian, so. It's amazing what age can do to a tea. This would be a good comparison. If you all have the 2020 or 2021 Lao Man E, you have some of the 2008 Lao Man E, compare it. Just miles apart. And that's with the enhanced sorting process and cleanliness in the factories from the 2021. Like, there's a lot of improvements. And this just has so much age. There's also a possibility that this 2008 may have a little bit older tea tree material mixed in, just due to the price and availability of Lao Man E has changed over the years. So I don't really know the difference in tea tree ages from the 2008 version to the newer 2021 version, but I bet you there's a difference there. Especially with the price of our 2008 teas. My goodness. Really pleasant. Like, what in the world? This doesn't taste like lemon at all. Probably still my favorite mountain now. I should probably revisit Jingma, Yiwu. I think I'm starting to like Yiwu more. It's just so expensive now. We should do more famous mountains. I think next month I'll do another famous mountain. I'm picking up all my tea in California in December, so I'll have a lot larger collection here available for tasting. So that'll be fun. Starting in December, there'll be a lot more teas I'll be doing on live stream. Where do you recommend sourcing good raw and ripe? So I get this question a lot, and I'll answer it here on the live because we're 36 minutes in. It's kind of hidden. I don't like to answer those questions on comments or in public settings a lot, because then like, oh, you have a bias, blah, 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 right? People get all weird when you mention names of companies. So the most important thing with Puer is it's clean, it's affordable. Well, I should say it's within your budget. Everyone's budget is different. So clean, tasty, and within your budget. And when we don't have a lot of experience with Puer, we don't know what we're looking for. So I'll tell you this. When you drink Puer tea, it should not taste like dirt or funk or manure or fish or be super weird. So it should be very pleasant. Also, anyone else in the chat, drop some recommendations. Go for it. Where you can get some clean, affordable, tasty Puer. For me personally, in my experience, if you don't want to go crazy, I think going to Danong and trying their 2021 Enchanting Beauty 100-gram cake, an incredible raw pour to start that'll build a nice standard for you. It's super clean, it's super approachable, it's used old tree material, it's sweet, it's aromatic, it's delicious. For a ripe, you can look at the 2022 Zhang Feng from Danong as well. It's another 100-gram cake. You can get a raw and a ripe, stay under 100. Great place to start. Another location you look at is Bona Tea Company. You kind of look, sometimes they have sales. They do sell some Danong tea selections as well. Those are the only ones I can really recommend. I can't really recommend the other brands on that site. Those are two places you can start. Once you kind of build that nice foundation, from my own experience, not saying they're the best teas in the world, not saying there's not better teas out there, but there's only teas I drink. Once you have that standard foundation and you learn about, okay, I'm going to drink this raw tea only for 3 days, 3-day rule, very important, so you get familiar with that tea. Because if you drink a Puer tea for the first time, I don't know, you just ate a big meal or you drink some coffee and you feel weird after that tea session, you don't know if it's the tea that made you feel weird. Could have been the breakfast, could have been the lunch, could have been the tea you drank prior to that. So you need to just drink that tea for 3 days, learn about how that tea affects your body, then come to a conclusion. Then you can start to go to all these other vendors and request a lot of samples. Don't buy big, huge cakes. Just request a bunch of samples, compare them to your prior experience, test them, and then you'll start to learn and find your sources of Puer. For me, a good place to start, I think, is the 2021 Enchanting Beauty from Danong Tea. And then also there's Zhang Feng 2022 Ripe Tea Cake. those are a great foundation for raw and ripe. That would be my recommendation to start. Pasha and Naka, those are tasty teas. They're hard to find now. Pasha and Naka tea cakes. Yiwu, so tasty. Awesome. So Jing Bangs is sharing a few recommendations as well. I love it. So yeah, there's lots of vendors out there. Explore, and remember, don't buy too much. It's exciting to be on a website and like, oh, this tea looks great. There's great reviews. At the most, buy a 100-gram cake. If the smallest size they have is 200, that's fine. But I would say define your budget before you purchase and try to get a raw and a ripe. And if you can, if you're going to get more than one raw, one ripe, get the second raw and ripe from a different vendor. Then you get a nice little variety, and then you can compare it. But don't splurge when you're trying a new tea. Just get a cake, sit with it for a week or a month, and then if you love it, well, go back and buy as much as you want. So hopefully that's helpful. Dakota, you got what? 1, 2. You got my recommendation. Had 2 companies, and then you got Seven Peng's got some recommendations. 2 companies. You got 4 places to start. But yeah, if you did ask the question, I think someone asked the question on YouTube on the comments, and I didn't respond. That is why. I just don't like to, in my official like once a month videos that are concise, that people watch more, and in my comments, I just don't like to list the company or recommendations because I think that takes away from the focus of education and focusing on the raw material. That's why you'll see me not talk about brands that much. On these live streams, they're more casual, so they also could be a little bit more boring depending on how much you like tea. I'll be a little bit more chatty and happy to answer any question. I'm actually going to let this liquid sit here, heat up and build up that nice aroma to enjoy. It's a good idea, Jungpan. A sample of set. So I'm assuming it would be like, 2 or 3 raws, 2 or 3 ripes, and probably 2 sessions of each. Something like Enchanted Beauty, which I talk about way too much, and then maybe a little higher level, and then a Famous Mountain. So you can kind of gauge up a nice standard for factory tea, higher level tea, and then Famous Mountain. And then I can do the same thing with ripe. The problem with that is, because now as I start to build my other career, I start to think about my time and value and the amount of time it would take to build and source those sample sets. And I don't want to gouge the price. Basically, I want to make it affordable. It's just hard. It's just a couple hundred sample sets. I mean, I think I should, maybe I'll just crank it all out in one day. And then I can kind of make it more efficient use of my time. It's a good idea, that's for sure. But what do you think that sample set would be? I think it's a pretty good place to start. So basically have every tea has 6 grams, separated into 2 bags, so 3 grams each, so you can get 2 sessions out of it. Or maybe a 3 gram and a 4 gram. That way they can also learn about, okay, lighter steeping, stronger infusion of the same tea. That might be a better way to do it because then they can have more options. And then each tea is 3 and a 4, 3 and a 4, 3 and a 4. They can slowly move up on that. And then on the ripe is more difficult. You definitely have that kind of entry-level ripe. You would probably need to do 4 and 5 grams. Oh, I know what I could do with ripe. You can do something like the Zhangfeng, a Lao Man E ripe, because that's just incredible. It's not super old, but super tasty, rich, creamy, etc. Or Songzong. And then the last one could be aged ripe tea. The problem with aged ripe tea, it's Probably would need to include a little booklet because you have to prepare age-ripe tea correctly, especially if it's been aged a little funky. You probably have seen that overwash rule and shaking it halfway through and pouring it out. That's very important because there's so much dust that accumulates in ripe tea. Maybe make a little booklet that goes with it. It's a good idea. I don't know, is there really that much demand? Maybe I should do like a poll. I should probably offer that to the whole YouTube community. I mean, a big broader range of folks that get into it. And what's an affordable price point for that? That's another thing to think about. It's not really a lot of tea. 7, 14, 21. Basically 42 grams of tea. Be about 12 sessions. But it's an experience. It's been sourced. Famous Mountain Teas are so, I mean, the Famous Mountain Tea is what's going to offset that price so funky. I like it. Thanks for the feedback. Anyone else got more feedback ideas? Always a welcome one. Interesting, because then you could even do a wild ripe, because the ripe tea could be more fancy. It could be wild ripe, traditional fermentation, aerial fermentation, and aged. Maybe I would just do a raw starter pack and a ripe starter pack. Then you can bundle them, of course. It's a lot of tea picking. A lot of tea picking. This thing will be broken. Yeah, I really wish I could get really cool design. If I could make the package really cool, without spending a lot of money. I like what Miss Tan does. Miss Tan. It's just so simple. This is literally just like craft tape. And then this is something that I haven't talked about much. So there's the yellow tea. She gave me a yellow tea, which I thought was just another extra pack of yellow tea. Because I was drinking the yellow tea that I was serving. But then I found this. And I was like, I haven't opened this yet. What the heck is this? Why is there a dot on this? Because the other ones, the jasmine has a dot, but the other yellow tea doesn't have a dot. So I said, I didn't even open it. I was just going to like send it out. And then she told me, no, this is a gift to you. The yellow dot is from older tree material than her other teas. And I was like, what do you mean older tree material? So when she goes there, there's a very small amount of older tree material that's not blended in. Because normally they just blend everything together. They don't think much of it. But she had like less than a kilo of older tree material. That's where this is from. So I tried it the other day. There's no smoke. That's fascinating. It was more sweeter. It's more full body. So I asked her, do you sell this tea? Do you offer this tea? And she says no, because it's so difficult to get them to sort the tea. So she's going to try this year, or next year I should say, to allow them to sort the tea of the older tree and the not so older tree, so then she can make this an exclusive kind of production of hers. But that was fascinating. She had a separate, smaller amount of just the exclusively older tree tea material from that area. Totally different tea. It's amazing what raw material can do. So, maybe I could do something like that, right? You get something really simple and get a stamp. Because I'm not so happy with my packaging, to be honest. The tea's good. But my Patreon tea packaging could use a level increase. So if I did a sample packet, I want it to be beautiful. That's really what stops me from doing a lot of stuff, is because I get too perfectionist and I don't want to release something that's just kind of subpar. And the time it takes to do that, you know, the good value use of my time when I go do something else, I work and make it substantially larger margin of value per hour on my time. Anyway, this is me rambling. I'll work on it. I'll let you know what I come up with. I won't promise anything, but take it into consideration. already, y'all. I mean, this tea could be, 10 more infusions. Thank you all for your support, tuning in. Keep an eye out, first of the month. Like this video if you're watching it. We're going to be posting videos, of course, first of every month. There might be a Vietnam video, won't be that much tea. There'll be a little tea in there. That'll be coming up in the next month or two once I edit that. We're going to be doing these live streams public, probably once, sometimes twice a month. And of course, any kind of questions you all have, if you're a patron, you can message me privately anytime. And then if you're from YouTube, just drop them in the comments. I will get to them. Any brand recommendation, things like that, tea selections probably won't be answered on the YouTube comments, but I can happy to answer great detail and recommendations in the Patreon. So thank you all so much for your support. Have an awesome rest of your weekend. And I have a kitty here, so I will get to the ending of the live stream in 1 minute. All right, y'all. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.